Hey guys, Fred and Sheila McCoy, Hatfield McCoy Museum, fredmccoy.com. Sheila's behind the camera.
Hi guys, hope you're having a great day.
Guys, we want to do a follow-up to a video we did a few days ago.
Okay.
On Tim Walz, the guy running for Vice President of the United States. And there's been a lot of controversy over it. We got quite a bit of emails and comments on it and text messages. And I wanted to clarify something. I wanted to try to make things just a little bit plainer. This is nothing to do really with the Hatfield McCoy Museum or Hatfield McCoy feud, other than that J.D. Vance, it was related or is related to Crazy Jim Vance, Bad Jim Vance, Uncle Jim Vance, all the things that Jim Vance was known for. He's no blood relation to Devil Anse Hatfield, but he is related through the Vances. But going back to Tim Walz, you know, I want to try to make it so people can understand. Imagine being a security guard or a police officer. And imagine working somewhere for 24 years. For 24 years, these people hired you to guard them, or you as a police officer there to protect and serve. And for 24 years, they gave you training, they gave you room and board, they gave your clothes to you, medical, dental care. For 24 years, you received all this. And they prepared you all the time. That's what your training consisted of, is how to defend yourself, how to lead your men, how to do in case you ever had a problem as a security guard, a police officer, or let's just say National Guard. Let's say the National Guard, that's what they're known for. They stay ready. They train, what is it, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year, whatever it is. And that's what they train for, and that's what they get paid. The government pays them a salary to be there in case we need them. Now let's say that after you have trained all this time, and you've got 24 years of pay, you've not been in no conflicts, you've not had to do nothing except show up and get paid. And now let's say that a problem arises. Here comes a bad guy that's breaking into, going to burglarize the house you're paid to do security guard on, or a police officer and you're called to a bank robbery or whatever. And all of a sudden, all this money they've invested, all this time, everything, and you say, woo, I don't want to get into that. And you leave and you quit and you go home. How would you feel? How would you feel if a police officer done that, or you hired a security guard and he done that, or anybody for that matter? How would you feel? You've paid this person for 24 years. Now, again, I'm like J.D. Vance. I don't want to take nothing away from his military service. That's great. He was there for 24 years. He served.
Right.
But when it counted the most in his life, it's not that much to go out here and train and shoot or do these things that you do. What counts is showing up when you're needed. And I admire him for 24 years. Had he stood up and been counted when it meant something. But when it meant something, he decides to quit. Now, what does the person do? They get the word to prepare to ship out. You know, there's conflict, and I'll read it over in here again in a minute, but there's a conflict of sayings there. Some people says, oh, he never got no orders. He quit before he got. Exactly. You don't have to have orders. They send out especially to the higher ups, the higher ranking officers, the higher ranking enlisted first sergeants, master sergeants, command sergeants. They know they're head of the enlisted. They know what's going on with what's coming.
Okay.
So he got this notice that you guys be on guard, be ready, be prepared. You might be shipping out here soon. And when he got that, he quit. only to quit, walk away, cowered out. You just got stiffed on your investment, even though you had more years on your contract. We'll talk about that in a minute over here because another YouTuber does a story on this.
Okay.
Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance has recently criticized the military service record of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the Democratic nominee for vice president.
When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him.
We verified Walz did retire before his unit went to Iraq, but there's no evidence that the timing was intentional.
Then people wonder why veterans look down on this. Why does veterans, J.D. Vance, or any other veterans, if you're on any veterans websites, on Facebook or anywhere, you'll see this is a big topic, is stolen valor. Big topic. Only to have the man to brag later on about his services in war, or brag about being on the parade deck or the air deck, the airfield of another country that he was never in. And that's a mistake. That's not a mistake, guys. That's stolen valor. That's lying. Pure lying. This YouTuber, she done this story, and she'll put the video so you'll see it there. Mm-hmm. YouTuber, we verified that Walz did retire. She was talking about, and she comes on her channel and she says, we were asked about J.D. Vance criticizing Walz as military service. And she said, we verified that Walz did retire before his unit went to Iraq, but there's no evidence that the timing was intentional. He retired before his unit went to Iraq, but there's no proof or no evidence that his timing for retiring was intentional. Well, that's crock. How about the fact that Walz had at least 2 years left on his newest contract? He had re-enlisted, and he'd got the command sergeant position on the condition that he went to school and finished the classes and done all that.
Right.
Which he didn't do. So if you don't meet your part of the deal, you don't.
It drops back down to.
He drops back down to the master sergeant.
Okay.
He drops back down. He never finished. He's not a command sergeant. He didn't retire a command sergeant like he told everybody.
Right. And that's what you're mostly talking about there, is because he's saying he's one thing and he wasn't.
There are two things. One is he says his rank was a command sergeant.
Right.
I don't know that much about Army
Right,
rank.
right.
I was in the Marines.
You're a Marine.
But from what everybody said and from what I've read and heard, a command sergeant, you can be a command sergeant only after you complete certain classes.
Yeah.
And you've got a certain amount of time to do it, and you have to enlist for so long to be the command sergeant. You can't just get command sergeant and then retire, because that's the rank that you're going to retire at. That's the salary, the retirement you're going to draw. So you have to serve so much time in that rank in order to get that retirement. He's actually drawing the rank or the retirement of a master sergeant.
That's what I was going to ask you.
He's drawing the retirement of an E8.
Okay.
I think it is. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
They'll
Like you said, you don't know.
Master command sergeant's E9.
Okay.
Sergeant major.
Okay.
And so you know whether you're drawing a retirement as a private or a general or a command sergeant or a master sergeant.
Okay.
He knows what if he don't, either way, he's either a liar and doesn't need to be vice president, or he's idiot and doesn't need to be, because he don't even know what he retired as, if that's the truth.
Wow.
We don't think he's an idiot. So
Right.
Stolen valor, which is worse than being an idiot. If you're an idiot, at least you can claim
You don't know better.
that you're an idiot. You don't know any better.
Yeah.
But when you do something like this, it's wrong.
Ouch.
Now, she says that there's no evidence of his timing. How about the fact that he had 2 years, at least 2 years left on his contract?
Okay.
Shows he intended to keep the easy road and keep drawing them paychecks from America. Hey, I'll keep on drawing that paycheck. I'll show up my once a month, 1 weekend a month, and 2 weeks out of the year. I'll do this and that. I'll keep drawing that check. Preload, you might say, until word came down that his unit was possibly going to be shipping out to Iraq. understand, nobody has said that he got the orders. I haven't heard that. I've heard people say when he got the word that his unit was possibly going to be shipping out to Iraq, that's when his men says that he turned in his resignation. His man said Walz got word of the future deployment. That's when he checked out. His men said he deserted them. His men said that he left them hanging.
The one said that they were told to get everything in order, their affairs in order and stuff.
That's what they told him.
Yeah.
That's the letter that he got
Okay.
when it first happened, when he knew he was going to Iraq. Get your house in order.
Yeah, there
You
you
and
go.
your men, your unit is going to be shipped to Iraq.
Okay.
He ain't got the orders yet, but it's like an intent to sue somebody. If you're going to sue somebody, the attorney will send an intent to sue letter, first of all. Once you get the intent to sue, then they can file the suit.
Okay.
And that's the requirement for deployment. That they told the CO, the XO, and they told the first sergeant or the sergeant major in that case. YouTuber. Now she goes on, this YouTuber, and she'll play the video, but
Vance did serve in a public relations role with the U.S. Marine Corps. He served as a combat correspondent or military journalist for nearly 4 years, from September 2003 to September 2007, rising to the rank of corporal in 2005. In that role, he took photos of service members and wrote articles about them for the Marine Corps. As for whether Vance saw combat, the U.S. Marine Corps confirmed that from August 2005 to February 2006, Vance was deployed to Iraq, but Vance did not experience combat. In his book, Hillbilly Elegy, Vance said he was, quote, lucky to escape any real fighting, which he has emphasized on several occasions, including this conversation with reporters on August 7th.
I served in a combat zone. I never said that I saw a firefight myself, but I've always told the truth about my Marine Corps service.
With your Verify,
she says Vance did serve in a public relations role with the Marine Corps. He served as a combat correspondent or a military journalist. That's what she says. Now, you've got to understand that's the way things are, but people can make things. We're talking about Walz. The question has been about Walz's military service. About Walz saying he was a sergeant major command, Walz saying he served in Iraq, Walz saying he had PTSD, Walz saying that he was on the tarmac in
Saw the bodies or
Afghanistan. Yeah, all these different things that Walz has said.
Okay.
But now let's look at this YouTuber. What she says is
Okay.
that she's talking about Vance's service. She's going to Vance's service. She's questioning Vance's service, and she says, well, Vance did serve as a combat journalist or a military journalist.
Okay.
Her first statement was correct. Combat journalist. Combat journalist. If I ain't mistaken, I could be wrong. His MOS would have been a 4341 U.S. Marine Corps combat correspondent. Combat correspondent. Combat. What would a combat correspondent do? He reports on combat. That's his job. That's his MO. My MOS was a 0311, a grunt. When you can't do nothing else, the Marine Corps makes you a grunt. 0311. Basic rifleman. Everybody in the Marine Corps is a basic rifleman. Everybody knows how to shoot a rifle. If you can't do nothing else, you can shoot a rifle.
Okay.
And you can hump, and you can patrol and force march, and you can get from point A to point B, and you can do what you have to do. And that's the heart of the Marine Corps.
Okay.
This man was 4341 if he was a combat correspondent. Now, she says that the Marines confirm that from August of 2005 to February 2006, Vance was deployed to Iraq. Now, we've forgot all about Walz. See, we're talking, she's talking about Vance now. She's took that attention off of Walz's and she's flipped it. Now we're talking about J.D. Vance.
Okay.
But he served from 2005 to 2006. She says, but Vance did not experience combat. You know, this one video we did a while back, I said, You know, when you go into the Marines or Army or Navy or Air Force, the Coast Guard, wherever you go and you're serving for the United States, they tell you where to go. They tell you what to do. They tell you what you're going to do, your MOS. JD didn't go in there and probably ask to be a combat correspondent. They issue these MOSs to you as you're going through training.
Okay.
Everybody's got to have a job, and wherever they need somebody at is where that person goes. So he happened to choose or happened to be appointed to as a combat correspondent.
Okay. Which
means that you're a correspondent, but you're in combat. It's as dangerous on him as it is the other man fighting beside him, because he'd have his camera, have his pad, whatever, but he'd also have his rifle or 45. She says that he did serve or was deployed to Iraq, but Vance experienced no combat.
Well, did he say anything?
Thank you, sweetheart. See, that's what I'm hoping these people right there are thinking right now.
Mm-hmm.
When did J.D. Vance, when has any of you ever heard J.D. Vance say anything that could be considered stolen valor? I did this, J.D. Vance has said that he served in Iraq. Iraq is a combat zone. He may not have been in open gunfire, right, but he was in a combat zone. That's what they get. That's why they issue, I'll come up on it here in a minute.
Take your time.
But that's why they issue the medal for being in Iraq. Because it's a combat zone, just like the Vietnam ribbon I was talking about a while back, when you have boots on the ground, or you're in the air, or you're on a ship that's bombing the place or whatever. That's in relation to that.
Okay.
But Vance did not serve in combat, she said. And YouTuber says she herself, and shows statement confirming Vance said he was lucky to escape any real fighting. She shows this as if this is evidence against him, but it's something that J.D. Vance wrote in his book, Hillbilly
Elegies.
Hillbilly Elegy. He wrote, and he said in his own writing, that he was lucky that he escaped any real fighting, which he emphasized on several occasions. I served in a combat zone. I never saw a firefight myself. That's what he says in his book. I served in a combat zone, Iraq. That was a combat zone. I never saw a firefight myself. That was back years ago when he wrote that. How much clearer could it be? How much clearer could that be? See how this person's taking the story of the main subject of Tim Walz and turning it around to J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance has never falsely stated anything about him being in battle, being in a gunfight. He did serve in a combat zone, boots on the ground in Iraq. Unlike Tim Walz's claim. Tim Walz claims that he served in Iraq, served in Afghanistan, held this rank. JD's not done that. He's ranked corporal. He's never stated anything that a person can point their finger at or show us a video of that tells us he's done anything but told the truth. The Iraq Campaign Medal, ICM, is a decoration awarded to U.S. military personnel who served in Iraq or its territorial waters between March the 19th of 2003 and December the 31st, 2011, in support of Iraqi freedom. And that would be the medal, and that's the ribbon that anybody that served in Iraq would have received.
Okay.
Tim Walz wouldn't have that. He didn't serve. He wasn't there. J.D. Vance has got it because he was there. Walz again tried to explain something about Tim Walz and about the first video we did.
We weren't complaining about his service. We were saying where he was one thing and he wasn't.
Oh no, I'm exactly. But I'm saying everybody's wanting to give him credit for this 24 years. That's great. We paid him for 24 years to be able to fight for our country in that 25th year when we need him to go fight. And when it come time to pay back, and do his duty, he ran. Somewhat like somebody else I remember. Somewhat like that guy right over there, Devil Anse Hatfield. When it come time to fight, he ran on his man. He ran out, ran on McCoy, and Uriah McCoy was taken POW. A lot of the other ones were killed. That's it. She's ready to lift off back here like a helicopter.
Yes, people.
I probably done said,
I'm flapping
guys,
wings.
thing about Fred McCoy,
But let's move on to Twisted Tim. Watch what happened when he was introduced back in 2016. Pay attention to the title that was used.
Congressman Tim Walz, also a member of the Armed Services Committee and Veterans Affairs, Democrat of Minnesota, highest ranking enlisted soldier ever to serve in Congress, enlisted in the Army National Guard at 17 and retired 24 years later as Command Sergeant Major and served with his battalion at Operating Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan.
Governor, I mean, this has happened repeatedly. And one thing you know by our brave men and women in uniform, they always know what rank they retire at. That's a really important deal. Is he contributing to her lack of momentum in the stolen valor issue that continues to bubble up?
If he isn't already, he will be, because the more people understand, they'll realize this guy's not ready for prime time. They didn't vet him. The reality is, well, let's be very clear. We honor him for his service that he did render, and he did, and I respect him for that. Here's what we can't honor. We can't honor the deception and the lies. He should be praised that he served, but he should not be praised for lying about the way he served. When he talked about he carried a weapon into war, he didn't. When he talked about serving in Afghanistan, he didn't. And he had a rank that he didn't have. That's what's the problem.
Record facing growing scrutiny since joining Kamala Harris on the ticket. And now the campaign is caught tweaking his military bio. How convenient. The campaign website originally called Walz a, quote, retired command sergeant major. But now it says served as a command sergeant major, which I guess is technically correct for a moment, after reports that he was reduced in rank for not completing his coursework before retirement. Our next guest is calling out Walz for embellishing his service and says he abandoned his unit right before they deployed to a war zone. Real command sergeant major Thomas Behrens joins us now. Sergeant Major, thank you very much for being here. I want to clear something up real quick, because you knew Master Sergeant Walz. You deployed with this unit. You know all this. It's not a big world of command sergeant majors in the Minnesota National Guard. And I served with the Red Bulls. It's a great unit. Was the unit aware when Walz retired? Was the unit aware that this deployment was coming? Because some on the left are saying, well, he didn't have his orders, so he didn't know. He knew full well that there was a deployment coming, correct?
Absolutely, and he even said it himself in his campaign announcement that came out in March of 2005. I didn't find this out until just a couple of days ago either, but he actually filed with the Federal Election Commission on February 10th to run for Congress of 2005, and in March he actually had his campaign wrote, as Command Sergeant Major, I have a responsibility not only to ready my battalion for Iraq, but also to serve if called on. I'm dedicated to serving my country to the best of my ability, whether that is in Washington, D.C. or in Iraq. He continued adding, I don't want to speculate on what shape my campaign will take if I'm deployed, but I have no plans to drop out of the race. I'm fortunate to have a strong group of enthusiastic supporters and a very dedicated and intelligent wife. Both will be a major part of my campaign, whether I am in Minnesota or Iraq. And this was actually on CNN. I mean, it's him admitting right there. He knew in March that they were going to go to Iraq.
Hi guys, hope you're having a great day. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.